Alrighty. Okay, welcome back. Like I said before, we are we're skipping 5.5. We're jumping over to 5.6, which is going to be linear inequalities. So real fast, we'll talk about the difference between the two. So we'll jump back and we're going to graph this guy here. Let's graph. We're going to graph. Maybe we'll graph y equals 3x plus 1. So if I graph you to, if I ask you to graph 3x plus 1, we'll start with the easy one. Where do we start at? We start at 1. From 1, we're going to go up 3 and over 1. And we draw that line. Okay, that's how we everybody good with that? We drew that line. Okay, now when I drew that line, what did I actually draw? This line represents what? Remember? If I asked you, tell me when you draw a line, you're graphing all of the points that close, not necessarily intersect, but all the points that. So let's take one of these points. This point right here is 1, 3. What's going to be true about 1, 3? Versus I come over here and I picked on 3, 1. What's different about them? Yes, we're going to follow the same slope, but what we have to remember is this is an ordered pair x, y, 1, 3. If I put 1 in for x, that's 3. It helps to give you the right point. That's not 1, 3. This is 1, 4. If I put 1 in for x, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, and I put 4 in for y, I end up with 4 equals 4. So I end up with true statements. So when I graph a line, all the points on that line make that equation true. Versus if we come over here and we graphed 4, 1 instead. So I put a 4 in for x. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. 13 does not equal 1, so therefore this was not true. So when I graphed a line, I was graphing all the points that made that one particular equation true. So if I take this point down here, if we went down 1, 2, 3 and left 1, so is that -1, -2? So I'm going to put a -1 in for x and I put a -2 in for y. Is that true? 3 times -1 is -3, -3 plus 1 is -2, -2 equals -2. So yes, it's true. So once again, a point, a line, is an infinite number of points that is going to make this equation true. Okay, that's what game we're playing. The difference in today is now we're going to do this. We're going to change colors, and now we're going to go with y is greater than or equal to 3x plus 1. So here, I'll highlight the difference here. Previously, we had equal sign. Now we're going to start rolling with an inequality sign. Okay, that is the difference between up until this point in today. Okay, now, how do things change? Let's go back and take this point here. Let's take the point 1, 4. Let's put that in here. 1 is greater than, 4 is y. X is 1 plus 1. What do we end up with? 4 is less than or equal to 4. Is that true? Yes, it is true. Why is it true? Because we got that equal to sign underneath. So 4 equals 4. So that is true. Okay? But this is an inequality. So that means many things could be true. So let's take this point over here. 4 and 1. Let's put that guy in here real fast. So we know that y was 1. X was 4. Is this true? Is 1 greater than 13? It is not true. However, if I take this point here, what do I want to say? Let's go with -1 and and 4. Let's take this point here, -1 and 4. Let's try this guy out. 4 is greater than or equal to 3 times -1 plus 1. And we end up with 4 being greater than or equal to -2. Is that true? That is true. So what happens is now I have points out in space that make this inequality true. Beforehand, I was locked into a line. Everything had to be on this line. But now that I have this inequality, now we have other things besides the line that can make it true. Now, obviously, this point gave me a false answer. So that means that anything on this side would give me a false answer. So if I put in 0, 0. 0 is greater than or equal to 0 plus 1. So 0 is not greater than 1. So again, any point I pick over here is going to create a false statement. But any point I pick over here is going to create a true statement. So let's try this guy. We'll try -4 and 1. Let's put that guy in there and see what happens. 1 is greater than 3 times -4 plus 1. That would be 1 is greater than or equal to -11. Is that true? Is 1 greater than -11? It is true. So what happens is when we graph an inequality, I am going to shade the true half plane. So we're going to draw a line and we're going to shade the true, the half plane that's true is going to be shaded. Okay. Now we have some vocab over here. I'm trying to debate if I'm even worried about filling it out. It's the linear inequality in 2 variables. I'm not too worried about the vocab. We'll move on. Okay. Now let's talk about this one here. Let's graph a new one. So let's say we had x plus y is greater than 2. Number one is we still have to graph this. So here's where the road, here's where you hit that crossroads. Which way are you going to graph? This one graphs really easy with intercepts, and that's the way Mr. Dottie rolls. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to go with it crosses the x-axis at 2. It crosses the y-axis at 2. And I'm going to draw this line in there. Did we all follow that? Why I put those 2 points there? Again, we're graphing by intercepts, which is my preferred method. So we're going to take out y. We end up with x is equal to 2. Now it says x is greater than 2. I'm not worried about that part right now. Okay. So x is equal to 2. Y is equal to 2. So x is equal to 2. Y is equal to 2. I drew the line. But now what I have to remember is I'm going to have half planes. And before we get to the half planes, let's talk about the line itself. So I can see that it went down 2 and over 2. So if I go down 2 and over 2, I'm at that point. So what is that point? We went 4 across and we went 2 down, I believe, right? Sure, let's go with it. Now, let's test this point out. 4, -2. Let's put her over here. 4 plus a -2. Is that greater than 2? I get 2 is greater than 2. Is 2 greater than 2? What? Huh? We're on 5.5, 5.6. We're in our note packet. We're taking notes on 5.6. Is 2 greater than 2? Somebody say no. Thank you. So here's what happens. When we do this boundary line, sometimes the boundary line does give me true points like this one did. Sometimes the boundary line doesn't give me true points like this one. So what happens is when we talk about we talk about that boundary line, when I have the equal to sign in it. So let's write that over here. We'll talk about half planes. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to is a solid line. I gave it to you last time you were here. But I have another copy. Don't try taking notes here. No. Okay. Okay. So if we write that in, so I noted here, when we have these two symbols, we have the equal sign, I am going to draw a solid line. So now what am I going to do when I have this scenario? 2 is not greater than 2. We are going to see if I can do this right. We're going to make this into a dashed line. Okay, that is how we designate the difference between including or excluding the boundary line. Okay, I'm going to make one a solid line, and I'll make this one a solid because it had the equal to sign. This one's dashed because it's not. Okay, now the next thing is I have to determine, we have a true half plane and we have a false half plane. How am I going to figure out which one's which? Let's test it. How would I test it? I'm going to pick this point here. I'm going to pick this point here, 0, 0, because it is the, oops, I erased it. I'm going to pick 0, 0 because it is the easiest point to pick. So if my line goes through it, I'm going to have a little trouble. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go with 0 plus 0. Is that greater than 2? Is 0 plus 0 greater than 2? It is not. So that means that this 0, 0 lies in the false half plane. So that means that the other side must be the true half plane. So we're going to shade that true half plane. Yes, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's yeah, notes wise, this is it. So from here, we're just going to jump into doing some problems. Okay, what? Okay. All right, and that's it. That is the only additional, basically, 2 steps we have to what we have been doing. We're going to graph lines. When we graph it, we got to make it solid or dashed. And once we get done graphing the line, we're going to shade one side or the other. Okay, that's the only difference. So let's scroll down here to the extra practice and see what we got. It says, tell whether the ordered pair is a solution of the inequality. So our first one is x plus y is greater than or equal to 5. And we're testing the point 3. X is 3, y is 2, is greater than 5. Is this true or not? Okay, so this is a no. Next one, x is 5, y is 3. Is that greater than or equal to 2? And because of the equal to sign, we're good. So that means that, yes, this is a solution. So this is we're starting out the process backwards. We're trying to determine, is that point a solution to that system of equations? So I'm going to -1 plus 2 times 2, is that less than or equal to 4? And that is yes. So I'm going to do these in my head, and then we'll see if we get the agree or not. So where's Eli when you need him? Let's see, 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 is not less than 7, so this one will still be no. Let's see what we get here. All right, provided I did that math in my head right, there's what I think we should get. So I want you to verify that. And if we differ, let's go back and check. You guys spend all of choir today?
Is it 12? I think it's Okay, is it 12:30?
The bell will ring. It's not 12:30.
Oh,
It's 11:30.
oh,
Second lunch isn't going to start for another half an hour yet.
oh,
Because they have the bell to release first lunch.
okay.
No worries. So the choir watch the inauguration all hour?
I walk a full hour because, oh, wait. No, not that way.
I walk by her.
No,
Oh, if my wife would only tell me that. She never does. You're right. Nope, doesn't happen. Sorry, I tried to be funny there. So maybe you can laugh. It's okay. You can smile on your mask. I don't. Anyway. Here we go. We got a -3. Here, we got to pay attention to our signs. We got a -4 times a -1, so that ends up turning that into a +4. And I end up with 1 being greater than 6, which is not a true statement, so that's why we got no. We got -2 minus 2 times y, which is a -3. Is that greater than 5? Again, this is just paying attention to your signs. 2 plus 6, is that greater than or equal to 5? And yes, it is. So that is why when we test points, if we can test 0, 0, that is the best point to pick because I don't have to worry about all the sign stuff that goes on here. Okay? And actually, as we practice these, some of you would get enough that there's actually a shortcut to this. I don't test points anymore. I just shortcut it, but that's fine. Okay. Here we go. We're going to graph, it looks like 7 problems here, and then you'll have time to get stuff done. Because again, that's my goal. I want you to get homework done in class. What? After we get done with these 7 problems, yeah. So, but that is work time to get your, we'll transition from this to puzzle times, which I'll start with you. And then once your puzzle times are over, then it's time, you got a big ideas assignment to do. So it's not like you have nothing to do. There's plenty to do. My goal is to have you get everything done in class. Well, I'm taking a grade on the puzzle time, so. Here we go. Now I'm gonna go back and remember how to graph. There's only one variable here, it's y. What does that mean? It is only gonna cross the y-axis. So here's the y-axis, here's 4. Now, when I draw this line at 4, will I be drawing a solid line or a dashed line? It will be a dashed line because the inequality is only a less than sign. And now I've hit that fork in the road. Am I going to be shading below the line or will I be shading above the line? And here again, we're going to test 0. Is 0 less than 4? Yes. So which side am I going to shade? I'm going to shade below. Y is greater than -1. So there's -1 on the y-axis. Again, it's only going to cross one axis. It's only going to cross the y-axis at -1. I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Is it going to be solid or dashed? Solid. This one will also be dashed. Again, we're looking for that equal to sign. If it has the equal to sign in, that fills in the gaps. Okay, but in this case, it's not. All right, so now, again, we're going to test that. We're going to shade above or below it. So again, I'm going to test 0 is greater than -1. Is 0 greater than -1? Yeah. True. So we're going to shade above it. All right, I'm going to switch gears on you. Now we got x is greater than 3. Now what? I'm only going to cross the x-axis. It's going to be a vertical line, solid or dashed? It is dashed. It doesn't have that line underneath there. Okay, so again, there was no equal to sign, so we made a dashed line. All right, we're going to shade to the left, we're going to shade to the right. So again, we're going to test 0. Is 0 greater than 3? So 0 lies in the false half plane, so we're going to shade the other way. If you want to, I mean, again, it's up to you, and when you take the test on what you do, I'm not going to look for you to test points, or I'm not going to grade that part. I'm going to shade the y-axis below 4. That's what that's telling me. I'm going to shade the y-axis above -1. That's what that's telling me. I'm going to shade the x-axis to the right of 3. Okay, so again, testing points isn't a necessity, but first starting out, I probably would. All right, now we're going to get into it. Let's see if we can do, I wanted to see if you can do 16. Let's see what happens. And I'll jump in here and work on it, should you struggle. Again, this is where it depends on how you like to graph. Do you want to do it with intercepts? Do you want to solve for y? Because either one is acceptable. Okay. All right, I'm going to shade it. Okay, again, me being the intercept grapher that I am, I know it crosses the x-axis at -3. Maybe. It crosses the y-axis. I said those backwards. It crosses the y-axis and x-axis, both at -3. X equals -3, y equals -3. And when I draw that line, because of the equal to sign, I am going to draw a solid line through that point. And now we have to determine which side are we going to shade. And again, we're going to test this. 0 plus 0, is that greater than or equal to -3? It is, so that means that this is the true half plane. We're going to shade up here. Okay, all right, let's try 17. I'll walk around the other half of the room. Two different variables, so that if it has two variables, we're going to cross both axes. So it's not going to be more than one. Okay. Oh, I see your error now. So then cross the x-axis. All right. Again, I'm going to roll with this. I'm going to say x equals 4. I'm going to say 2y equals 4, so that means that y has to be 2. If we weren't doing this here, but when I graph this, there is no equal sign in here, so that means it's going to be a dashed line. And if I want another point, actually we can slope this out. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 over and 2 up. 1, 2, 3, 4 over and 2 up. So I know it actually was going to go, if I want another point to go through. Except I failed there. What have I failed? Drawing this line, I have failed because it should have been dashed. So we'll grab the eraser tool and I'll do it the easy way. All right, there it is. Now, time to shade. Again, 0, 0 is my easiest point to pick. 0 plus 0, is that less than 4? It is less than 4, so we're going to shade this half. Okay. One last one to try if we haven't done it already.
Negative 2x equals 6. So the x you have negative 3 right there, which is correct. However, that's from this negative 2x equals 6. That's negative 6. So now we're going to take that out of that 3y equals 6. So we're going to go on. Now, I'm going to draw a solid line or dash line. So we're going to take out that, take this out. So there is no negative 2x equals 6. What does that mean? I have to divide that across. 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So that means here negative 3 is now we're going to the x side, which is 2y equals 6. So we're going to move on the y-axis. Give us a solid line or dash line. So that means that 0 is the false half plane, so yes, your intuition was right.
All righty, let's test this out. I'm tired of red. Blue. Here we go. Again, negative 2x is equal to 6. So that means on the x-axis it's going to cross over here at negative 3. I'm going to have 3y is equal to 6. So that means that on the y-axis is going to cross here at 2. Because there is no equal sign, we're going to go through and we're going to draw a dashed line through here. And lastly, we're going to test 0, 0. 0 plus 0, is that greater than 6? 0 plus 0 is not greater than 6, so this is the false half plane. I must shade the true half plane. An online store sells digital cameras and cell phones. The store makes $100 profit on the sale of each digital camera and a $50 profit. $50 profit. The store wants to make a profit of at least $300 from the sales of cameras. Write and graph an inequality that represents the digital and cell phones that they must sell. Identify and interpret two solutions. So we're going to let X be the digital camera and we're going to let Y be the cell phone. We make $100 for every X camera that we sell. We make $50 for every Y phone we sell. So what am I going to do with 100X and 50Y? How do we figure profit? Do we subtract those? Do we add those? What are we going to do with those? We're going to add those to figure out my profit. Okay? Now, what do I want my profit to be? And the key word here, it doesn't want to be 300. It wants to be at least 300. So because it says at least, that made it into an inequality. So now my question is, yes, we're going to compare this to 300, but does it need to be greater than 300 or less than 300? And because it says at least 300, we're going to go with greater than or equal to. Okay, so there is the inequality that I am trying to graph. And we only have, why, now, question, why we only have a one quadrant graph here? Why is this only a one quadrant graph? I heard something, I'm not sure what it was. But why don't we, if I went over here, this would mean I sold negative digital cameras. Can I sell a negative number of cameras? I cannot. So we're negative here, and negative here. So this is the only quadrant where they're both positives. That's why we can't sell a negative number of anything. All right, we got to graph this. So again, it's still the same thing. I am going to cover up the 50y. So 100x equals 300. So what is my x-intercept? 3. 50y equals 300. So y-intercept is 6. We're going to draw a line here. Is it going to be solid or is it going to be dashed? Solid. And lastly, where are we going to shade this? We're going to shade above it or below it? So again, we'll test 0, 0. 0 plus 0, is that greater than 300? No, I'm not going to make anything if I sold no cameras and no cell phones. I'm not going to make any profit. So therefore, I don't want that. So I am going to shade above that. All right, there's 5, 7. So now let's get out your puzzle times and start there. All right, so I am going to stop the recording.